After their husbands run off with younger women, three divorcees seek revenge. Join us as we chat about a hidden passion for advertising, a hateable face, and 24-hour boob jobs. Then we find out if the First Wives Club stands the test of time.
Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? James says gladiator with a glut. Alan says as a father, blah blah. It's the test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Test of Time. My name is Alan Noah, and joining me is my first podcast wife, James Brief.
Thank you, Al.
I mean, I have a wife, but I also have you as like a podcast partner. But you're not married, so does that make me your podcast husband?
Well, in the context of today's movie, it would make me the cunning, successful, smart one that wins at the end, and you the bastard, cheating, sleazy one. Let's see if you could redeem yourself with this podcast.
I hope so. But before we really get started on the First Wives Club, we have to talk about Nick's Marathon, because when this episode is released on November 7th, it will be Nick's Marathon weekend, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern on November 7th through 8 p.m. Eastern, November 9th. We are going to be streaming video games live like we always do, raising money for a good cause. But this year, we're doing something very, very special and different. We're going to be streaming from the Ronald McDonald House, New York Metro, in New Hyde Park, New York. We've donated so many video games and systems and things to the Ronald McDonald House over the years. Nick Capabianco, who we've named the charity after, when he was a kid, he was at the ribbon cutting of this Ronald McDonald House. There's a great picture of him next to Ronald McDonald cutting the ribbon. And our friends at the Ronald McDonald House said, hey, why don't you do Nick's Marathon from our house one year? And we said, yeah, that'll be great. So we're going to be streaming from the house. It's going to be great to hang out with friends. We're going to game. We're going to live stream. We've got Switch 2s. We're going to be playing Mario Kart World. We're going to be playing Donkey Kong Bonanza. We're going to be having a really, really good time, all so that we can raise money for a new Ronald McDonald House out in Stony Brook, Long Island. And there's going to be a gaming nook, a special section just for video gaming that we're sponsoring. It's going to be the Nick's Marathon Gaming Nook. I'm really excited. This is going to be just such a fantastic weekend.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. I have a couple questions. It is streaming live. Can listeners, when they're playing like Mario Kart and stuff, can they join in?
Yeah. Go to nicksmarathon.org. I'll put a link to it in our show notes. You can chat with us. And yeah, you want to play with us? Let us know. Let's play Mario Kart together. That would be awesome.
Now, we're talking about the Nick's Marathon that's going to stream in November of 2025.
Yeah.
But let's say you're listening to this podcast some other time that's not November 2025, and you're like, hey, this charity sounds fantastic, but it's not the marathon anymore, so I can't donate anymore. Would I be correct there?
No, you can donate anytime to nicksmarathon.org. If you've missed the live stream, that's okay. You can still make a tax-deductible donation. We are a 501c3. You will get a tax receipt. Please donate anytime.
It's going to be very exciting to play with everyone. You don't have to donate. Just participate and, send us a chat like, hey, listening in from the Test of Time. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, please do. But let's talk about the First Wives Club. We were kicking around ideas for a movie to do in light of Diane Keaton's passing. I very much want to do Father of the Bride and Father of the Bride Part 2. The way I remember those movies is that they're more Steve Martin movies, and Martin Short is really funny in them. I don't really picture it as a Diane Keaton movie. I know that she is well known for her star turn in Annie Hall, but Woody Allen just creeps me out, and I just kind of didn't want to watch a Woody Allen movie. So this seemed like a fun movie to visit. If there are other Diane Keaton movies that we should do, let us know. I'm happy to do more. Baby Boom is one that I remember thinking was pretty funny when I saw it when I was a kid, but I don't think I've seen it since. But yeah, so James, why don't you tell our listeners what the First Wives Club is all about in case they haven't seen it?
Sure. This film is about three college friends, Elise Elliott, Brenda Morelli, and Annie McDougan. The women reunite after a mutual friend Cynthia dies by suicide following her wealthy husband leaving her for a younger woman. At Cynthia's funeral, the three women realize they're all in similar situations. Each has been left by their husband for a younger woman after years of marriage. Bonded by shared betrayal, the women form the First Wives Club, vowing to get even. Their revenge begins as a scheme to humiliate their ex-husbands, but evolves into a mission of empowerment. They leverage their ex's secrets and business dealings to secure financial settlements and ultimately channel their efforts into something greater, creating a nonprofit organization to help women in need. In the end, the women rediscover their strength, self-worth, and friendship.
That's right. Okay, so this movie was a big hit when it was released, right? It was a movie that starred women and did really well, and Hollywood considered it a fluke, like they always do whenever that happens, right?
You're right, Al. Hollywood, probably dismissed this film. It was released in September 20th, 1996. That's not exactly the time that you would release a blockbuster of sorts. The film had a $26 million budget, and it opened at number one with $18.9 million. It stayed at number one for 3 weekends in a row.
Wow.
Ultimately making $105 million. It made the top 10, and it was a very successful film. The film opens in a flashback with a voiceover that says, "The four of us were friends." And of course, the fourth is Cynthia, played by Stockard Channing.
I watched the movie with Courtney, and when Stockard Channing first appears, Courtney said, "Oh, I forgot that Stockard Channing was even in this." And I was like, well, I guess she's not in it for long, if that's the case. And yeah, just knowing the movie poster with the three women, Diane Keaton, Bette Midler, and Goldie Hawn, you kind of know that it's about three women and not four. And the suicide is definitely shocking, especially because I thought this was a comedy. Comedies don't often start with a suicide, but it is a way to bring these characters back together. And it's important that they've lost touch. It's not that these are friends who were friends in college and stayed close after all these decades. Like you and I, James. These women have drifted apart, and it takes the death of their friend to bring them back together. The younger woman that Cynthia's husband left her for is Heather Locklear. She's not credited. You just kind of see her on screen for 15, 30 seconds, something like that. But, after the funeral, they go out for lunch and they start talking, and they realize that they are all in the same boat, that their husbands have left them for younger women, except Annie, kind of. Because Annie is saying that she and her husband are fine and pretty good and well technically separated, but they're working it out. And then the other two are kind of laughing like, ha ha ha. And Annie is in therapy, and she and her husband are both seeing the same therapist. So it's kind of couples therapy, but kind of not. I feel like this has come up on the podcast before, but I do feel like in the 80s and the 90s, therapy was kind of seen as a joke. It's a punchline. Ha ha ha, LOLOL, you need therapy. I don't think we look at therapy the same way anymore. This movie isn't like really laughing at therapy that much. Like the scene where the doctor is like, "You need to hit me with the foam bat." That's meant to be comedic. And it is a recurring theme that Annie doesn't have self-confidence, and she has these anger issues, and she just bottles everything up. You get that she's wound tight. She can't even hit the therapist with the foam thing until she does and whacks her right in the face and does it a little too hard. And then, of course, we realize that she does have real reason to be angry at the therapist because the therapist is sleeping with her husband. And of the betrayals in the movie, Annie's is a double betrayal, because for the other women, their husbands are having an affair, but for Annie, she's also betrayed by her therapist, who is a person that she trusted. I mean, not that any one of them have it easy, but she kind of has it the worst because of that double betrayal.
I think this woman might be the single worst person in the entire film. "You're my therapist." That's what Diane Keaton says. And then the doctor says, I'm a woman.
Right.
No, she is the doctor here. That is so wrong. Like, she is actively seeing both of these people in mental health while they're going through a peri-divorce separation, the most vulnerable part of their lives. I did not like this woman at all.
No, she is awful. And Aaron, Annie's soon-to-be ex-husband, is also terrible because the night he's going to tell Annie that he wants a divorce, he asks her out, they go dancing, they sleep together, and then he says, I want a divorce. And she's like, how could you do that? And he's like, well, you look good, and I don't know, I just got carried away, which is not an excuse. It's not okay. And then apparently he's living with the therapist, Dr. Rosen is her name.
God.
So then she comes home and he's not cheating on Dr. Rosen because he's married to Annie, but also she comes home and then finds him there having just had sex with his ex-wife. I mean, that's also shitty. It's all terrible. Yes, you hate Dr. Rosen, you hate Aaron, you hate both of them right out of the gate. But I have to say, I do hate what Annie does when she decides to get revenge, when she recruits her daughter to be her spy. This is wrong. And I say this as a child of divorce. Honestly, being a child of divorce might influence a lot of my opinions about this movie kind of in general. But the daughter is very much Team Mom. She's calling her mom a doormat and saying that dad's just using you and you deserve better than that. And it's great that the daughter is supporting her mom, but there's a difference between being Team Mom and supporting your mom and actively being a spy to hurt your dad.
Absolutely.
That is shitty. That is really, really wrong. And that's Annie's first move. Her first idea is, I'm going to recruit my daughter and she can go in and be a spy. That's not like a thing that she does 2/3 of the way through the movie when she's desperate to get dirt on him. That's move number one. And I really, really hate that. That just got under my skin.
Of course, they weaponize her homosexuality against the dad, too.
A little bit. The daughter, Chris, is gay. She kind of just comes out very matter-of-factly to her mom when Annie recruits her for the scheme to get revenge on dad. She meets her at a gay bar. It's played for laughs a bit. I don't think it's homophobic. They're not making jokes about, ha ha ha, she's a lesbian. The big joke is that Chris says to Annie, hey, don't tell dad. I want to tell him when the time is right. And then she just blurts it out at the end when he's already sad and vulnerable because Annie took the business away from him.
She tells her dad immediately before he goes into the First Wives Club. That's the weaponizing of it. We don't know the backstory of their relationship, and it's certainly implied that he is not a great dad to her.
Right.
But I just agree with you that the daughter should be left out of it. Unless we as the audience were led in on some particularly shitty actions that he did. Like, let us see that he is kind of an asshole to her too.
You're absolutely right. We don't get any backstory. But when she comes out as a lesbian to her mom, she says, don't tell dad. I want to tell him when the time is right. That implies that there is some relationship, that she does care about how her dad will react to finding out that she's gay. Annie's mom is also around, played by Eileen Heckart. She's really funny because she's just kind of pushing Annie to get back together with Aaron because she just thinks the family should be whole and the divorce is just a bad idea. She's kind of like the stereotypical controlling mom, constantly telling her daughter that everything she's doing is wrong. But at the very end of the movie, Annie is single and happy, and her mom says, you know what you need? And Annie says, what, Mom? And she says, nothing. And it's really sweet because her mom supports her and loves her, and she is happy with herself, and that's all she needs. She doesn't need Aaron. The thing about Annie stealing Aaron's business out from under him, I get it because there is also this undercurrent throughout the movie where it's not just that these husbands left their wives for younger women, but it's also that these wives supported their husbands while they were growing their businesses, while they were amassing their fortunes, and then they are leaving them. So it's not even just a midlife crisis leaving for a younger woman thing. It's also leaving their wives who have built them up. So that kind of maybe leads to a feeling of entitlement to take the business. But I also feel like that's kind of not really explored. Like at the end when it's like, oh, he has an ad agency and she's taking the ad agency. It kind of felt out of left field. Like, does she have a passion for advertising that she's always wanted to do more in the world of advertising and she just couldn't before?
Right.
But let's move on to Brenda, played by Bette Midler, and her ex-husband Morty, played by Dan Hedaya, who I see and just think of the dad from Clueless. I know he's been in lots of other things.
I love Dan Hedaya. He's great.
Yeah. I feel like he kind of has a hateable face, even though in Clueless he is a loving dad and he dotes on the Alicia Silverstone character.
And the Paul Rudd character when he doesn't have to.
Yes, that's correct. But yeah, in this movie, you just kind of hate him because he has abandoned Brenda. This is also a story where Brenda built him up. He has this electronics store business that her organized crime family members helped set up with stolen merchandise, and she was part of that company. She built up the company, and then he just left her for I think a cashier, Shelley, played by Sarah Jessica Parker, and he is an asshole. They have a son who's becoming a bar mitzvah, and Brenda has a line where she says something like, the bar mitzvah is the one thing your dad is paying for. And it's one thing to be annoyed about child support or alimony or whatever, but we see all of the money that this guy is throwing at his young girlfriend when she buys all of the stuff at auction, which was Elise's husband's thing. So those stories kind of overlap there. But she's buying hundreds of thousands of dollars of stuff because she wants to buy her way into New York City high society. And Morty's fine doing all of that, but he's not paying for anything else for his ex-wife. That's also punishing your kid, because it seems like the kid mostly lives with his mom. So if she can't pay her rent, that's making your kid homeless. So I really hated Morty. And I feel like the movie is kind of trying throughout to make Morty the least bad guy, the least shitty husband. And that's because at the end of the movie, Brenda and Morty do reconcile. Like, I saw the machinations of how they were doing that, but I don't know, man. I really fucking hated Morty, and I kind of hate that they end up together at the end of the movie.
He does a lot of asshole things, but that doesn't mean that he can't have a redemption arc.
Sure, but does he? Does he redeem himself?
The problem with his redemption arc is that Sarah Jessica Parker's character, Shelley, is so dislikable. I didn't pick up on the fact that he might be neglecting his son. Now, is Bette Midler going to be homeless? Now, they do imply that her apartment isn't as nice as, say, Goldie Hawn's apartment. But as a test of time thing, I was like, well, she is still living in Manhattan. It's still probably got to be a pretty nice $5,000 a month for that thing.
Yeah. There's one moment where he takes out the son. It seems like the dad spent time with his kid, which is great, but mainly just to tell him that he was getting remarried to Shelley, which, okay, if that's the only reason you're hanging out with the kid, that also sucks. And, you know, the kid is very upset by this news, and he comes home and talks about it with his mom, who then herself becomes very upset by this news. So I hear what you're saying about getting a redemption, but I don't feel like Morty has a redemption. Like, there's a lot of focus on money and materialism in this movie. And anyone who's been through a divorce will tell you that money is a big factor in divorce. That's a key thing that couples fight about. But Morty, he runs out of money. Brenda basically extorts him and says, you have to give me your business because I know that the business started with illegal funds and it's either you give me everything I want or you go to prison. So Morty is screwed financially. He's with Shelley, who wants all of this money that he no longer has. It almost kind of feels like he goes back to Brenda for the money. Like, yes, Shelley's annoying, and I think he gets annoyed with her, but just because he's annoyed with his younger girlfriend and he needs to financially, that's not a redemption. That doesn't make me think, oh, this guy learned his lesson and now he deserves the love of this amazing woman again. It kind of feels like it's just kind of really convenient for Morty to go back to Brenda. I don't really see what Brenda gets out of taking him back.
That's a fair take on it. Maybe he is faking it to get back together with her and get with his money. My headcanon is that they do stay together for the long run. He's a jerk. I mean, I think there is a redemption, but you're right. You could stretch it out to something else that he's doing it for a different reason. But I don't think so. Although I agree it's possible.
Also, it does happen where divorced couples reconcile. That is a thing that absolutely happens in real life. However, I think it happens far more frequently in movies than it does in real life divorces.
Correct, but when there's specifically the story of three women, because I believe one of the other characters makes an attempt at reconciliation I think to Diane Keaton, and
yes.
Then she's like, oh, and I threw him on his face because what he had done was just so much more of a betrayal.
Right. At the end of the movie, Annie is single, Brenda's back with Morty, and Elise is dating someone new. I'm just saying, if you took 3 random divorcees, friends of yours, friends of mine, people we know, it's not going to be one of them gets back together with their ex-husband. You know, I think the actual real life percentage is lower than 33 1/3. But let's move on to Elise and Bill. Elise is played by Goldie Hawn.
And Bill played by Victor Garber, I have to say, who I absolutely adore. He is fantastic in everything he does.
Right, and they go out of their way to make Goldie Hawn look terrible in this movie with the collagen in her lips.
And they fail spectacularly because Goldie Hawn is so beautiful.
Right, exactly. And they used, apparently, saline to make her lips big, which is very temporary. You know, it's not like the collagen, which stays in the lips.
Have you ever heard there is something called the 24-hour breast job, the 24-hour breast augmentation, where they just inject a bunch of saline?
So you have big boobs for a day, and then the saline just goes into your body?
Yeah, it just absorbs.
Interesting. They also make it a point to talk about how Elise is an alcoholic. She's constantly smoking. And it is kind of funny from a test of time perspective where they do talk to Elise about the drinking. They say that she has a drinking problem. She needs to drink less. And at the end of the movie, she does. She gives up the booze. But not the smoking. No one mentions the smoking. The fact that she's smoking all the time is fine. No one says, hey, you should stop with the smoking. One, for health. Also, because she's an actress and she's talking about her youthful appearance, drinking too much can hurt your looks. But so will smoking.
Right.
You know,
right.
Like if you're constantly smoking, that's not good for the skin.
Yeah, there's so much smoking in this film.
Right. It stands out that they bring up the drinking and not the smoking. But what Bill is basically going for is he wants support from Elise because she's a successful actress and he's just a producer, and he wants half of their assets. But he thinks that he's entitled to half of everything that she owns. And then she says, our assets includes all of the things that I bought you. And he is just kind of blindsided by that, which to me just implies that he had a terrible lawyer who wouldn't give him that advice, because if you want to pool all the assets, then you're pooling all the assets. I almost just feel like there should have been some other move that he would have done where he would have protected his assets and hidden them away, and then she would have had to go around that. You know, it just seems like a really, really obvious thing that, of course, she's going to take your stuff too.
Right.
Also, this storyline is different because Bill doesn't have an obvious weakness other than she can take his stuff. For the revenge plot, they need something more than that. Even though Bill is unethical and a shitty guy, he hasn't really done anything wrong. So then Elise befriends his new girlfriend, played by Elizabeth Berkley, Jessie Spano slash the girl from Showgirls.
And we also saw her in Any Given Sunday.
Yes, that's true. But so Elise decides to make friends with the Elizabeth Berkley character, and that's where she finds out that she isn't 21 or however old she's told Bill. She's really only 16, and she's a high school dropout, and so now Elise has dirt that she can use on Bill. You know, the whole ha ha ha, you're with an underage girl thing, eye roll kind of in general, at least that's my gut reaction. But it also, I think, doesn't make logical sense here because he is the producer of a movie. He's cast Phoebe. That's the Elizabeth Berkley character's name. She's going to need identification. She's going to have to fill out forms somewhere along the way. It's going to be revealed that she's 16. So this can't just be a shock out of left field for him as a producer.
It's a gotcha that's completely disproportionate because I'm not a lawyer, but I think if you sleep with a 15-year-old, whether she told you she was 20 or not, I think you are now a rapist and you go to jail.
Right.
I don't think there's any way around that. And I'm almost positive that Elizabeth Berkley, the actress, is well over 15 at the time of the filming of this film.
Elizabeth Berkley was 24 years old in 1996.
It didn't really land with me. Like, I felt like it was weaker writing there.
Right. Other than the main cast, there are so many great supporting actors. We talked about some of them. Dame Maggie Smith is phenomenal in this movie. I love her. I love her character. I love the way that she talks about, well, she'll help out the First Wives Club because she was a first wife and a second and third and fourth. It's a minor character, but just that little bit of droll British humor, I think really, really adds to the movie. Bronson Pinchot is also very funny in his handful of scenes. Apparently, Bronson Pinchot did not have a good experience working on the movie. Hugh Wilson, the director of the movie, took a lot of abuse from the producer, Scott Rudin. He also took a lot of abuse from Bette Midler, according to Bronson Pinchot. And then so Hugh Wilson took his anger out on Bronson Pinchot, and Bronson Pinchot had to tell him, guess what? You can't talk to me this way. I'm not the star of the movie, but if I walk, you're in trouble. It sounds kind of like a shitty, abusive set in general. Obviously, it's not okay for Bette Midler to be abusive to Hugh Wilson, or for Hugh Wilson to be abusive to Bronson Pinchot, or for anyone to be abusive to anyone on any set or any workplace ever for any reason. But it is a thing that Bronson Pinchot has talked about.
He's really only in a scene or two.
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense when you realize that the director may or may not have had the best time. Maybe he kind of cut his scenes.
Could be. At the end of the movie, there are a ton of cameos. There's Kathy Lee Gifford and Gloria Steinem and Ed Koch and Ivana Trump. She has her "Don't get mad, get everything" line, which is funny as a thing a divorcee would say, especially a divorcee who is married to a super rich guy. Ivana didn't take everything. If only she had left Donald a broken and penniless man.
Any national security agency listen again. These are the opinions of Alan Noah.
We'll post a picture of you with your MAGA hat. Don't worry, James. Also, J.K. Simmons is in this movie as like one of the guys who arrests Morty. I think it's in that scene. He's there and he's gone. And I was like, was that J.K. Simmons? And it is. Timothy Olyphant plays the director who's casting Elise, and he wants to put Elise as the mother who's going to be gross and craggly and old and decrepit looking. I think it might be Timothy Olyphant's first movie. But James, let me ask you about the movie as a whole. Do you think The First Wives Club stands the test of time?
Oh, I do. I think the film is, I think it's very entertaining. And I also like the casting of these three women. The dialogue that they have, there's one part that's played up for laughs. Goldie Hawn says to the other two, she goes, "I wish I could let myself go like you two did." And
Right.
there's one shot I love. It's such a test of time, a 90s shot. There's this one shot that pans out from an answering machine that's on top of a phone book next to a paper planner, like a paper calendar. And as it pans out more, there's these paper takeout menus. That was a great line. I forget which one says it, but I think maybe Goldie Hawn, but she says, "I ironed for him. I cleaned." Like, "You did?" And she goes, "Well, I supervised." And I thought the film was going in a direction of they're just getting revenge. It's going to be a little trite and cliche. But they turned this into a women's shelter, which is an important thing. Although I think they already had the rich woman character in Goldie Hawn. So I felt like if they were going to have a different archetype of each woman, that maybe Cynthia's Stalker Janet's character would have been maybe something else. Maybe she was the country girl that made it to college or whatever. But I was surprised that she was kind of the same kind of rich character as someone else. The Sarah Jessica Parker character, she was the least liked, but I know you're not supposed to like her, but I disliked how easy it was to dislike her. I thought it would have been better for Morty to have a slightly better redemption. I thought his redemption was fine. But overall, I think it's a good film. It was funny, it's well acted, I think it's just well done. And overall, it does stand the test of time. What do you think, Al? Does the First Wives Club stand the test of time?
One thing that I will say doesn't stand the test of time and also just kind of annoys me in general is that in this movie, they do say, "It's the 90s. Hey, we're women of the 90s. It is the 90s after all." And I hate that. I hate when anyone says that about any decade in any movie or TV show. It's literally dating it. But also, I just feel like the way that we look back on these things always changes. That's just history and time and context. And even if you said something about, well, hey, it's the 2020s, that will date poorly too. Also, just kind of big picture, I think it's a little eye roll worthy that this movie is about three women, four, technically, if you count Cynthia, all of whom have husbands who left them for younger women. I'm not saying that's not a thing. That is a thing. It happens all the time. But I don't know. I just feel like they could have had a little more variety in the divorces structurally. They're different characters and they deal with their divorces differently. But that one core thread of here are these four friends from college and decades later, all four of them have the exact same issue
Right.
where their husband has left for a younger woman. That's a coincidence that I feel is a thing that you see in a movie. So that just kind of took me out of it a little bit. I agree with what you were saying, James, about the revenge aspect. I was kind of getting 9 to 5 vibes because that movie is about three women who are wronged by one guy and they're getting revenge on him. This is a movie that is about three women getting revenge on three separate guys. But I have to say that the movie at the end, it turns it around. And it's not just about revenge. It's not just about justice. Like you were saying, they do something better. And when they bring it back to Cynthia, when they bring it back to this woman who killed herself because she was so distraught over what happened to her, then I feel like the movie really changes and really improves. I think the movie ends on a really, really strong note. It's a cliche thing to talk about movies that have third act problems. I kind of feel like this movie has a second act problem. For me, I just kind of got a little bored with a lot of the revenge stuff in the middle of the movie. And I really, really like the way that it ends. The fact that they do good, the fact that they bring it back to Cynthia. And this line really stuck out at me in large part because Nick's marathon is coming up as we're recording this. At the end, one of the women says, "I wish Cynthia was here." And someone says, "Well, she is. In a way, she is here." And I feel that way every year at Nick's Marathon. I always think, and sometimes say it out loud, God, I wish he was here. I wish Nick was here playing with us. And in a way, he is. And so I really, really like that sentiment. That got me in the feels. I gotta be honest. Also, in terms of just the comedy, most of it is dialogue driven. There's also physical comedy. These women really go there, especially Diane Keaton. She really throws herself into the physical comedy. I love that in this movie. I love You Don't Own Me, the song by Leslie Gore. That is sung, I think, twice, once in the middle, and then they do it again at the end. That is a wonderful song. It's a very pro-women song. It's a very female empowerment song, and it encapsulates the themes of the movie. So I love that too. It might not be a perfect movie, but I enjoyed it, and I think it very much stands a test of time. R.I.P. Diane Keaton. That's going to do it for us this week. Next week, we're going to be talking about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. That movie is turning 50. In the meantime, we want to hear from you. We are at Test of Time Pod on Facebook, X, Instagram, and Threads. Write to us. Let us know what you think about the First Wives Club, what you think about Diane Keaton, about Goldie Hawn, about Bette Midler, about divorce in general, whatever you want to talk about. We love hearing from you. And if you're listening to this episode right away, head to nixmarathon.org. Go to Nix Marathon on Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube. Check out the YouTube channel. We'll be live streaming there as well. Easiest place to find us is nixmarathon.org. Watch us, chat with us, make a donation if you're able. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time, everybody.
Bye.